Frank, a lot of the rioters who have been in court, would-be insurrectionists, have used the defense that the president invited them there, that the president told them to be there, the president told them that there was fraud.
Indeed, and now here they're faced with the reality of that fraud. You know, sales and marketing professionals will tell you their theme is volume, volume, volume. If they want to sell an idea or a product, counter-radicalization experts will also tell you it's
Frank, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we want to go to Ali Vitale, who has Adam Schiff, Congressman Adam Schiff. Let's listen.
Hi, guys. How are you? We're live here with Congressman Adam Schiff. Obviously, you saw and you were a part of what happened in that hearing room. Talk a little bit about the connection that you made between the willful ignoring of the facts that the former president was given by his top aides, and then, of course, what we heard from rioters here on the day of the insurrection, that they came because they felt that their votes in the election was stolen from them.
Well, I think that the hearing outlined very clearly how, even before the election, Donald Trump was out there telling the country something that he was told was not true, that he knew was not true. That is, that if he lost, the election would be somehow rigged, that votes that were counted after Election Day, when all the absentees were coming in, would somehow be suspect. So he was laying the foundation for that big lie. And then, of course, after the election, he's advised by his own people not to go out and declare victory, that they needed time for the votes to come in, disregards what they say, and then just continue with the big lie. Even when his attorney general told him it was BS, when other senior members of the Justice Department said there was no merit to the fraud allegations, other allegations, and said they were without merit. He's told over and over again, this is just not true, but he continues with it. And they raise money off the big lie. They anger and motivate people to show up on the 6th around the big lie, and those people he incites to attack the Capitol. And it's a pretty clear linear progress of that big lie from beginning to end.
I think there's a question here about accountability that you and I have talked about before. The idea of you're clearly drawing a line between the former president and what happened on this day. You don't have the ability to bring criminal proceedings, but you could make criminal referrals. What's your message to the Justice Department as they're watching the second of these hearings? And, of course, we have several more weeks to go.
Well, look, we have done and are doing a vigorous investigation to find the full facts and follow the facts where they lead, and then share those facts with the American people. The Justice Department, they need to be doing their own investigation. They clearly are investigating many of the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th and those who organized or funded them. But as our committee has been demonstrating, there were multiple lines of effort to overturn the election. As the judge in California has said, some of those lines of effort likely involved criminal activity on the part of the president. That needs to be investigated by justice as well.
Yeah, so you're saying, I just want to be clear, that you think the Department of Justice should be investigating the former president for his role here?
I think the Justice Department should be investigating anyone, including former presidents, if there is credible evidence that they engaged in criminal activity. And here we've already got a federal judge, based on a limited set of evidence, saying that he believes multiple federal laws were broken. But our job is principally to share the facts with the American people and make recommendations about how to protect the country going forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And Katie and Andrea, I will toss it back to you.
Ali Vitale, thank you very much. So, Frank, I do want to get you to finish your thought, but I also want to get you to react to Congressman Schiff there saying that he thinks DOJ should prosecute anybody or charge anybody who's involved in criminal activity.
Yeah, just to finish out the last slide first, this repeated production of evidence that shows that the president was told by all of his experts, there's no fraud here, it's not just a legal strategy, it's a counter-radicalization strategy. It's exposure to the truth repeatedly that can help people come out of the rabbit hole that they're in. I know that for whatever reason, perhaps ratings, today Fox News seems to be airing the hearing. That's a good thing if people are listening to the facts today. With regard to Congressman Schiff's comments, I also share the sentiment that, Look, justice is in the first name of Justice Department. They're about justice, not just justice for some people, but justice for all people if the evidence is there. Now, I'll echo a comment that Chuck Rosenberg said earlier, which is that I still need to see evidence from people who were in the room or communicating with the president so that we hear his own words instead of people saying, I told him this. I now next want to hear, and he said this to me. We need to hear that repeatedly, particularly if we're going to ask DOJ to do what will be a very difficult thing for them to do. We need to get over that hurdle.
Yeah.